ready for the next matter for consideration, and that is the matter of Tracy Lee, DOC number 111680. Let me acknowledge the folks who are here, who have an interest in this case. We have in opposition, we have Ron Blackston, the victim's brother, Alice Harden, from the Natchitoches DA's office. Clifford Strider III, also from the Natchitoches Parish District Attorney's Office. Donna Harrington from the DA's office. Billy Joe Harrington from the DA, excuse me, District Attorney. Chandra Blackson on Zoom. Don Blackson, I guess is on Zoom also. Bart Blackson on Zoom. Kenneth Lewis, Scott Blackson on Zoom. Here, Kenneth Lewis Jr., friend of the victim. Steve Mansour from the DA's office, and Alex Reinbach with the Attorney General's office. Here in support from the Center of Justice is Nyla Campbell, sorry. Jack Wagestack, also from the Center of Justice, and Matilda Carbia from the Center of Justice. Okay. For those of you who weren't here earlier, we'll hear 10 minutes are allotted for the people speaking in favor, and 10 minutes also allotted for the people who are speaking in opposition of the application. Then we'll have 5 minutes allotted for the legal representation for the inmate, and then 5 minutes will be allotted to the prosecutors. So this is the matter of Tracy Lee, DOC number 111680. Mr. Lee was sentenced in Natchitoches Parish on September 28, 1988, and received the death penalty for the first-degree murder conviction of Ron Blackston. First, we'll hear from Ms. Matilda Carbia. I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
It's
Just repeat it for us.
yes, Matilda Carbia on behalf of Tracy Lee, his attorney. And first, I want to acknowledge the loss of the Blackston family and the difficulty of this proceeding, and the hardship and pain that this continues to bring up. Tracy Lee takes full responsibility for the horrific harm that has caused the Blackston family, and is immensely remorseful for his actions. In his words, says, fostered by self-identification, I alone am responsible for the acts I committed and the harm I caused to the Blackston family. I have had many years to think about and reflect on the damage I caused, the heartbreak I created, and the pain endured by so many. I am still tortured by the thought that I robbed the world of Ron Blackston and irreparably harmed Marjorie and Chandra Blackston. At 24 years old, Tracy Lee was in his 5th year of military service and stationed at Fort Polk in Eastville, Louisiana. He entered the military at the age of 20. After his first 2-year enlistment, he re-enlisted, this time for a 5-year tour. In his second tour before his transfer to Fort Polk, he served overseas in Germany and in South Korea. He arrived in Fort Polk only less than a year before the events in this case. He had grown up in upstate New York and had never lived in the South. Though he knew no one in Louisiana, Tracy initially did well at Fort Polk. He was deemed a quote outstanding soldier and was awarded medals for meritorious achievement. His leadership potential was noted by superior officers, and he was recommended for further development based on his professional attitude, public speaking ability, and the ease with which he handled difficult force materials. Within a few weeks of his arrival in Fort Polk, Tracy met a woman, a single mother with 2 young children, and they started a relationship. She and her children moved in with Tracy, and he supported them financially. This woman was his first love, and he saw a long-term future with her. Shortly before the crime, Tracy proposed marriage and she happily accepted. However, Tracy struggled with mental illness and substance use in the years leading up to the crime and during the commission of the crime itself, which was aggravated by intense stress and chronic alcohol use. In the year before Ron Blackston's murder, Tracy's chronically abusive father died, and this event was enough to trigger significant physical symptoms in Tracy, along with intense stress. He experienced alopecia, which resulted in near total loss of his hair. Tracy's relationship with his fiance was tumultuous at times. He was unable to handle his feelings about their ups and downs. He tried to commit suicide on 2 occasions, and he was referred for counseling by the military. But the counseling services were limited to 3 sessions focused on his substance use. On the day of the offenses in this case, Tracy's fiance broke up with him for good. He tried to reconcile with her, but she moved out of his apartment and was adamant that she was through with him in their relationship. He thought that his life was over. Despondent, he started drinking early in the day and was highly intoxicated by the time of the crime. None of this information is offered as an excuse, but rather as some context around the crime. Upon his arrest, Tracy immediately confessed and again tried to commit suicide. At trial, he testified and again confessed and took responsibility for the crimes and the death of Ron Blackston. Over the course of his nearly 40 years on death row, Tracy has become a rehabilitated man. He has taken advantage of the educational opportunities afforded on
All right, Ms. Blackston, we'd like to hear from you. Sorry about the technical issue. Can you hear us?
It looks like it's still connecting.
Can you hear us? You'll have to unmute your microphone. You're still muted. There you go.
All right, can you guys hear me now?
Can.
All right, sorry for the delay.
Go ahead. We'd like to hear from you. If you would introduce yourself, tell us your relationship and what would you like us to know?
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, Parole Board. My name is Chandra Blackston, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you in opposition of Tracy Lee's request for clemency. This has been a daunting task to have to share publicly about what grossly transpired on June 15th, 1985, to my brother, Ron Blackston, to my mother, Marjorie Blackston, and to myself. This has not been therapeutic, but has been a repeated ripping and deepening of unhealed wounds. For 38 years, Tracy Lee's malicious actions have plagued my life. I deal with avoidance issues, being hypervigilant. I have nightmares, flashbacks, and other unpleasant memories. This has caused internal damage and lasting effects to my mental health, such as depression, trust issues, thoughts of suicide, anger, diminished social confidence, lack of self-worth, and I struggle maintaining relationships or reclaiming any intimacy. What he did to me is irreversible and cannot be mentally erased. Tracy Lee's actions have had a crippling effect all of my adult life. I should not have been a victim to a home invasion or a witness to a murder happening over my right shoulder, forcing me to perform an oral sexual act and experience forcible vaginal penetration while a gun being pointed to my head. Then I had to listen to him do the same thing to my mother, what he did to me, while pointing a gun at her head. 38 years. This sentence is overdue, and it needs to be carried out immediately. Clemency would be a gross miscalculation given the inexcusable and unpardonable acts of his choosing. He's earned and he deserves the death penalty. Thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your courage in speaking with us today. Mr. Don Blackston.
Morning, my name is Don Bryce. And I'm representing my family in the request to deny Tracy Lee. 38 years, my family became victims in this act of violence by Tracy Lee, his her sister. Coming home to this reality, spiraling away to the pain and grief hit me. Others and I began cleaning the blood off the floor of the kitchen where this incident occurred. I felt then, as I do now, mountain of grief, heartache, helplessness, anger, and fear. Pain of no longer having a younger brother, pain and helplessness of observing the emotional, psychological scars that my mother and sister endured every day of their life. Frustration, heartache, not being able to erase those pains and anguish from me. Although my mother is long since passed, I feel helpless and seeing my sister struggle with depression, multiple disorders, and even thoughts of suicide. By allowing Tracy Lee to continue to live, part of me really fears that one day with the justice system as it is, he'll get out and harm our family again, and maybe even someone else's family. It infuriates me to know him continue to expend our feelings of pain, money, and time dealing with this. And so today, coincidentally, on my mother's birthday, my family and I agree and recommend now Tracy Lee's action and execute this current sentence immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Blackson. Mr. Bart Blackson.
Good morning to the members of the board and everyone in the courtroom. My name is Bart Blackston, and we're here today because a life has been taken, not by age, sickness, or an unfortunate accident, but by another man's hand. And this man raped a woman and her daughter in their own home. Who were they? They were my mother, my sister, and my brother. Believe it or not, today is my mother's birthday. Call it divine intervention, but I know she's watching over us to make sure that we and you put it into this by denying clemency for the man responsible, Tracy Lee. I was asked to describe these crimes and how they impacted me. And for my baby brother, Tracy Lee took a lifetime of special moments that I'll never have. Big brother moments, graduations, weddings, birth of children, etc. There are also memories missing with his nieces and nephews and now his grandnephew. But I do have one memory, one that I've tried to erase but can't. And that is cleaning my brother's blood off our kitchen walls from where he got shot twice by Tracy Lee. And for my mother and sister, going through this trauma has to be the worst thing a woman would ever have to go through. So yes, I'm angry and I have hate in my heart for this man. My mother and sister were never the same. Tracy Lee took part of their soul that could never, ever be replaced. Therefore, on that day, I lost my brother, part of my mother, and part of my sister forever. My mother was a strong woman, but no one on this earth should have to go through what happened that day. I don't know how she continued to live her life, but she did. I could see the pain that she carried every day. So if she was in pain, I was in pain. My mother's gone now, but I still feel the pain for myself and for her every time this case is mentioned because it's not closed. Again, I want to remind you that this pain and continued pain was caused by one man, Tracy Lee. Today, Tracy Lee should not even be alive, and we should not even be in these proceedings, but here we are. So I am pleading to you, do the right thing and deny Tracy Lee's request for clemency. Thank you for my time.
Thank you, Mr. Blackston. Next, we have Kenneth Lewis.
Yes.
Morning.
Mhm.
My name is Kenneth Bush Jr. I am a military veteran. Currently work at the Attorney General's office as an attorney in the gaming division. And I am from Natchez, Louisiana. Best friends with Ron Blackson for years. I was at home that night when my dad got that call. And he said, "Hey, I asked my dad to take it up. We gotta get see what's going on." Now, Tracy Lee's attorney said that he harmed the life of the victims only, but he affected countless others. Ron was like a brother to me, and Tracy Lee took away that friendship, that brotherly love, that lifelong hope and dreams that we decided to share together. It was three of them were best friends. Tracy Lee affected his siblings, his parents, his friends, and the community as a whole. Ron had suffered with a brain tumor, and he was healing from that. On the road to full recovery, but guess what happened? Your client decided that he was having a bad night and decided to go in and do what he did. Now, we shared goals and dreams. Like I said, it was three of us. We shared goals and dreams, which included going to LSU together, becoming engineers together, being godparents to each other's children. Now, you may say that's a lot for youngsters, but in our community, we did that. That's what we did. Now, the other best friends, we're still cool. We have that, but we're missing one. And it was caused by Tracy Lee. So I couldn't become an engineer because it was too bad. So I went on to become an attorney. So I'm asking you today to understand that even the act of clemency gives Tracy Lee, this prisoner, gives him hope that he can share things with people in the community, with families, but we can't. We have no hope. That hope was taken on that night. That hope of being with Ron, sharing lifetime dreams with Ron, goals and ambitions, we don't have that. Our only hope is that you would deny his clemency and put him to death. So I'm asking, not only as a family member, because the Blacks are my family, not only as a brother, but as a standing person in this community who understands what this man took from us. I ask that you deny his right to clemency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. And to wrap it up for us is Mr. Scott Blackstone.
I'm Scott Blackstone. I'm the son of Marjorie Blackstone, the brother Ron and Sandra Blackstone. It is unfathomable that the Blackstone family and friends still have to endure this pain and suffering of this case every year, every decade. The facts of this case cannot be disputed. The outcome has been decided twice. And family and friends still must endure and relive this horrific murder and rape committed by Tracy Lee over and over again. He is asking for clemency. Where was the clemency when my mother asked to check on my son, on my brother, after he had already shot him? No, he just went in there and shot him again. Each of you have the transcripts of the case, but what's not in those transcripts are the internal scars that we have endured all these years. They don't mention seeing Ron's lifeless body on the morgue or in the casket. They don't mention the blood at the house that we had to clean up. They don't mention having to inform his father his baby boy was murdered. They don't mention the first Christmas after Ron's death. My mom had placed gifts under the Christmas tree with his name on it, and we had to remove them to keep her from being upset. Days and years of seeing my mother and my sister, depression and heartache, we still haven't gotten the justice that the family needs, only to resurface time and time again when people call the house and ask about Tracy Lee's attempted escape or his parole. As my brother stated earlier, we've never got any new memories with Ron of Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays together. He never got to see his nieces and nephews, not even a picture. His actions caused a rippling effect for my family, which led to sleepless nights for all of us. Tracy Luke took more from us that night than anyone could know. He took everything from Ron, everything that he had and everything that he would ever have. And I want the same for him. I want everything, his life. No clemency, no nothing. As a reminder, Tracy Lee is not a victim here. We are. The Blackston family wholeheartedly and admittedly requests no clemency for Tracy Lee, and the conviction and sentence to the death penalty be carried out as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackson. And, is the board prepared for the expiration? Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
You got lawyers like to talk.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Chair, members, thank you, and thank you for hearing from victims and survivors and these on here in these proceedings, and we appreciate that. Governor Joe Herring is District Attorney in Natchitoches Parish, and the Blackston family, Scott, Chandra, and Mark wanted me to let you know that they would be here standing next to their brother Don today, but they've had a death in the family and there are medical issues that physicians won't let them travel. Otherwise, they would be here. Tracy Lee does not warrant moving forward to a clemency hearing. You've heard the effect that they've had, not just on the family, but on a dear friend of Ron. There were two juries, you've read your packet, two juries, 24 jurors in the death phase, penalty phase, that came back with the death penalty. That should not be changed. The defendant in this case, we went to their house, the Blackston's home that night, June 1985, and unscrewed the light bulb so he could go in. And he went in and he came upon Chandra and confronted her. Ron, 15-year-old Ron, heard something going on and went out to see what was happening. Tracy Lee shot him in the face. Ron, but he wasn't dead. Tracy Lee then got electrical cords and tied up Chandra and her mother. Chandra was 18, in the bedroom, raped them. Miss Blackston was begging to go back and help her son, her dying son, laying on the floor. He was face down. The response to her begging was Tracy Lee going into the living room and killing Ron, shooting him in the back of the head. That's the blood that you family has had to clean up. He raped Mrs. Blackston and Chandra, robbed them, killed Ron. He does not need to move forward. Here, you've seen in your packets letters from current sheriff, former sheriff, current chief of police, past chief of police, detectives, members of the community, and the family. He does not need to move forward to a clemency hearing. I'm going to provide the rest of my time to Special Prosecutor Cliff Strider, who's worked on this case, as well as Assistant DA.
Madam Chair, members. I'm here today to talk about what was said a couple minutes ago about him being, Mr. Lee being highly intoxicated. Been prosecuted for a long time. If you look at the events surrounding what happened to determine the person's intent or perhaps a level of intoxication. No one testified that he was stumbling, that he was falling down, that he was running the switch. The person said he was intoxicated as himself. He unscrewed the light bulb on the front porch, indicating he knew what he was doing. He darkened his entry room. He gets inside, he's wearing a mask that he had brought with him. He's carrying a gun that he had brought with him, indicating prior intent, also indicating that he knew what he was doing. whether he had been drinking or smoking marijuana, he knew exactly what he's doing. There was a distraction that evening. When Mrs. Blackson complains, let me go take care of my son, he's laying on the floor. He took care of that distraction by walking out and killing him. Distraction, problem solved. He systematically executed this crime. He unscrewed the light bulb, he brought his gun and his mask, he tied them up after he raped them so they could not escape and get away. He wiped down his fingerprints, or he attempted to wipe down his fingerprints. He was not successful in getting all his prints because he fought, he forgot, and he touched them. That's how they identified. He logically, he purposely disposed of the evidence of his crime, the gun, the mask, and everything else he took with him on his way home. When he drove, supposedly highly intoxicated, he 30 or 40 miles from Natchitoches to Fort Polk. He stopped and stuck the gun underneath along the road underneath the culvert. He threw the things out at different times. Logically and systematically, supposedly why he's highly intoxicated. When he gave his statement, he remembers every detail of what he done. He led the police to every place he had dumped a piece of evidence. The thing that puzzles me, why did he commit an armed robbery at jail? At the very end, he puts the gun on her and he takes the money. So the point is, intoxication, I don't see it. The facts, the lie, the fact that he was intoxicated. Or intoxicated too, he couldn't perform and he didn't know what he was doing. There's also been, lastly, an allegation about his mental health. If you've read the transcript, I'm sure you have, if you read reports of the doctors, they indicated that he has a personality disorder. Not that he's mentally ill, but he has paranoid tendencies. Like maybe he's going to turn the light out so nobody will see him. He has antisocial tendencies. No one and nowhere is any evidence that he suffers from any mental illness or defect other than his personality. His personality led him to where we are today. A grieving family, a promising young man. He left that family. Justice demands that this sentence be executed. And we respectfully ask that you deny and bless what we are doing.
Thank you. Great. Mr. O'Shea, you ready to?
Yes. Madam Chairman, I've read the information carefully and based on the barbaric, brutal, and premeditated nature of the offenses, 2 counts of aggravated rape, which he was arrested for and never tried for, and the rape of a mother and her daughter, 1st-degree murder of the mother's son. Secondly, a disciplinary conduct that's unacceptable. He had a disciplinary write-up in 2021, which he pled guilty to for a 30W. Right for appropriate rehabilitative program, express opposition from all living members of the Blackstone family and all members of the Natchitoches legal community, including the assistant DA that tried both of his trials. And all we received 15 letters of opposition. Based on all the above, I am denying his application.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shea. Mr. Mirabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for being here, the courage for being here today on both sides. As I listen to the victims in this case, I can imagine the pain and the grief and horror. This is a horrible crime. There's no question. And there's no question that this defendant is the person who committed that crime. It's not our job to retry the case. Our job today is to determine, based upon what, if anything, this defendant has accomplished while he's been in prison, to determine not whether or not he gets clemency, but to determine whether or not he submitted enough information before us today to grant a hearing. Reviewing the entire record, and I understand Mr. Roche's position, he did have a write-up in 2021, but in 38 years, he's only had 21 write-ups. He's got a low risk. He's done a lot of things while he's been in prison. And after reviewing the entire record, including the public comments, the comments of those in favor, comments of those opposed, my vote is that he has met the eligibility requirements to have a hearing. My vote would be today to grant a hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Biancardi. Mr. Freeman.
Okay, after reading the record, and listening to the comments from the people here today, his disciplinary history, he did have a write-up on 4/15/21. Just the heinous nature of the crime. You know, let me go help my son, and the guy gets up and goes shoot him. We're gonna help him, all right. So my vote is to deny his application.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. I can't vote to move his application forward, listening to the folks that we've heard from today. You know, especially those who are in opposition. I can't, I have concerns also about his disciplinary write-up. He has an escape on his record. He did, the Supreme Court did affirm his conviction and sentence in 1990. We have numerous letters of opposition from the community, not just family, but members of the community in Natchitoches Parish. My vote today is to deny his application for a hearing. So today, Mr. Lee has received one favorable vote, three votes to deny his application for a hearing. So that application is denied. Is ready to hear the next case on the agenda, and that would be the matter of James Copeland, DOC number 115009. Mr. Copeland is represented by Mr. Nicholas Trinacosta. We'll hear from you first, but I'll acknowledge folks who are here in opposition. Before you get started, Mr. Trinacosta, we have Amy Sylvie, the victim's sister. We have the district attorney from the 21st JDC, Mr. Scott Farrelly, Shelley Bridges, victim's sister, who will be speaking also, Jean Broussard, the victim's aunt, David Broussard, the victim's nephew, and Alex Reinbold from the Attorney General's office. Mr. James Copeland, DOC number 115009, was sentenced October 22nd, 1986 in Livingston Parish, in first-degree murder conviction of Miss Joseph Owen. We'll hear first from Mr. Trinacosta.
Thank you. My name is Nicholas Trinacosta, representing James Copeland, who was 19 years old at the time of the offense. He's currently 64 years old. He's been on death row for over 37 years, and he's been incarcerated since the crime, which was 42 years ago. I request that this board recommend clemency. I don't request a hearing. Your rules allow you to pass this on to the governor for with a favorable recommendation. In preparing, I'm always nervous when I stand in front of a group of people who have my client's life in hand. So I am. In preparing, it is wonder to me what might move three people. Well, I know it can't be the crime, because all the crimes are heinous and brutal. And if that's a reason for denying relief, well, then no one gets it. That's the nature of death penalty cases. So I can't really talk about what crime is, because that's not going to go over too good. What I can talk about is what, Madam Chair, we are not allowed to bring our phones or our watches in, only that side of the aisle. Is it possible you could tell me when I'm 4 minutes into my presentation? Thank you. The courts tell us, the law tells us, clemency is mercy. Period. End of story. It's an act of mercy. Blessed are the merciful, but they shall inherit mercy. We don't have any supporters, family members, all of James's friends or his fellow inmates on death. They're not allowed. As I mentioned, the facts of the crime won't change. Suffice it to say, a brutal murder occurred to a young boy after being raped by 2 men. Both received death sentences. George Brooks, the co-defendant, his sentence was reversed in post-conviction for the usual reason, or a usual reason. The lawyer didn't present mitigating evidence to the jury. After Mr. Brooks's sentence was reversed, the district attorney determined he was not going to seek the death penalty again. Mr. Copeland also had a pitiful trial lawyer who presented nothing to the jury of substance. So Mr. Copeland was able to present evidence of mitigation, what his background was, at a post-conviction hearing in 1995. The court heard evidence that he was abandoned by his parents. He bounced from foster home to foster home. And in each home he went to, he was sexually and physically abused. He drifted to Louisiana, started painting houses, the crime occurred. And I understand, Madam Chair, that a reason you give is his conviction and sentence was affirmed by Louisiana Supreme Court. It was. 84% of death penalty cases are reversed. Almost all of them in post-conviction. The affirmation of trial record does not necessarily reveal the errors that occurred at that trial. After the days of hearing dates, the court said to both parties, please brief up your case 30 days after the transcripts are completed. We have never seen the transcript. Hence, Mr. Copeland has been on death row longer than anyone else. Mr. Copeland is dying, not from man's hand, dying from God's hand. He has stage 4 cancer, rectal and bladder. 5 years ago, he had 1 lung removed for lung cancer problems. He lives at Angola's hospital, not on death row. He has had 6 write-ups in 37 years. I'm sure that doesn't matter, but that's the fact. His last write-up was 20 years. So why am I? What things can I say to any of them? I don't know. But I'm going to close the trial.
Mr. Copeland is not able to die at the great hospice at Angola. Many of you know it's a wonderful program, been there for a long time. He can't go there. Why? But there's a sentence. But he will not die by the hands of man. He's too far gone for that. He didn't stand. He'll be dead before the court reverses it. Quality of mercy is not strength. Mercy falls like the gentle rain from heaven. Mercy is twice blessed. It blesses him who gives and him that takes. It is an attribute of God himself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. Let's see, Ms. Bridges, you'd like to speak? Go ahead, however you like it to work, Ms. Carroll.
They're gonna go first.
Okay.
Me?
Go ahead.
My name is David Broussard, my wife Jean. And this is her nephew. He died when he was 11 years old. And I have to disagree a little bit with one of your statements.
Mr. Broussard, direct your
You
remarks
said
to
in
us.
all
Direct your
crime
remarks to the board, please, sir.
are horrific. Some of them are more horrific than others, as was this case. He was a good-looking kid. He was funny, charming. He had a personality everybody enjoyed. His young life had character, and it was just beginning. That all came to an end on July 7th, 1979. Cook was lured by two predators into their trap using fireworks as bait. They tortured him, took turns raping him, and after all this abuse, Will Cook still attempted to escape. And when that escape failed, Mr. Coleman and his partner got angry and raped him some for hours. After that, Cook was bound and gagged. They drove him 20 miles to a dark field, and they removed his restraint. You can only think or wonder if Cook was thinking maybe this nightmare was over. And they shot him at point blank in the head 2 times with a 20 gauge shot. His young life was over in a most horrific way. His family has lived with this shocking, heartbreaking pain for more than 40 years. The pain and nightmares don't just go away, especially with the endless appeals and going back to court. Cook's mother, Linda, passed away not that long ago. She'll never know if justice was served. She'll never know it.
honor Linda and the family with justice for the cruel, merciless man. Mr. Copeland doesn't deserve clemency. He deserves just what he got. Thank you for listening.
Mr. Broussard. By Zoom, we have Amy Sylvie.
Hello. I wanted to speak today on behalf of my late mom, but no one has a right to tell her story. I can only tell a snippet of my own to paint a picture of the complex and elongated grief caused by James Copeland. I was born in 1981. Some might coin me a replacement child, but I will never replace the life of Cook. He was my mom's only son, the youngest of 3 at age 11. Cook didn't get a chance to know me, but I knew him. I knew the story behind every photograph and every album. Cook sat across from me for years, crisscross applesauce, never tiring of hearing about My Little Ponies. He always appeared to me in a red tone, smiling and never speaking. I realize now he was an imaginary friend I created from a red tinted Sears portrait that hung on our living room wall. The same portrait in his case file. He kept me company while my mom wrestled with grief, prolonged by trials lasting through 1988. I saw Copeland at an appeal hearing later when I was still a kid. He had auburn hair and brown eyes like me. What cruel higher power would design me to look more like him than my own parents, I thought. As we passed the stand, he looked at me and grinned. I was the only person in that room feeling guilt or remorse, simply for being me. In my brightest days, I love myself and give my family, friends, and career the best version of me. In my darkest days, such as today, I feel born from the sin of 2 men that raped and murdered my brother. It's a shadow hard to step out of. How can I ever feel good enough? Cook was murdered on July 7th, 1979. On July 7th, 2009, I gave birth to my first son, Dylan Cook. Sometimes I wonder if I passed the replacement child torch unknowingly to my son simply by telling him how much he meant to my mom and how she thought he was an old soul. Copeland is the sole surviving person responsible for the transgenerational trauma to both those that were lucky enough to meet and love Cook, as well as those who weren't. There is no justice for the pain and grief caused to my family. Thus, there should be no leniency in the sentence given, regardless of good behavior, without devaluing my brother's life. Let God be the one to determine if he should be granted mercy in the afterlife. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Bridges.
Yes,
We'd like to hear what you'd like to say. You want to tell us anything?
yes, I am Shelley Owen Bridges. I was Cook's oldest sister. In only 2 minutes, there's no way to really tell you about the heartbreak, torture, and pain that my family has been through over the last 44 years. Or even much about my little brother. He was the cutest, sweetest, kindest, and most annoying little creature you ever met. For a teenage sister, anyway, you know. He managed to survive a house full of hormonal women and girls, but he could not survive James Copeland. This creature brutally murdered my 11-year-old brother, Cook, who was loved and dear to all who knew him. I don't know how my mom survived as long as she did. I don't think I could have if something happened like that happened to my kid. But she's buried next to him now, so they're together in heaven. God knows I've tried to find forgiveness in my heart, but I just can't do it. And I don't think I ever will until the sentence is completed. So please, I'm saying no clemency for James Copeland. And if possible, expedite this thing so that and my family can finally have some peace. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Bridges. And Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Knox, thank you and the board for allowing your participation at these hearings. I understand that is not the norm. Appreciate it. I'll be real brief. I know it's been a long day. I've listened to prior cases that we had here today, or you had here today. 27 years of the DA's office, the climate has changed respecting death penalty cases. Many cases that are factually coming into the office now that meet the criteria of first-degree murder could be death penalty cases aren't pursued. The approach is different, but I would suggest to you that the discretion that goes with charging is always taken serious. The point I'm trying to make is this horrific case for this young boy. Today, I would suggest it would still be a capital case criteria. If facts were pretty accurately relayed by Mr. Broussard, or was it told as it's a few days before July 4th of 1979. That's where Mr. Copeland first interacted with shooting fireworks. And Victim went back, visit with him, thinking he had a friend. That didn't go well. He was kidnapped, he was sodomized, and later his head was shot off with a shotgun. Anyway, procedurally, Mr. Costa, you were correct, please. And that's for another day, I guess. I'm here to oppose on behalf of our community, on behalf of 11-year-old victim had his life robbed away from him. On behalf of our office, the district against us. No questions? I'm done.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Prepared to vote, Mr. Rushing?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, based upon a lack of appropriate rehabilitative programs, there's only indication that he completed one good time program in my record, and that's anger management in 2022. He has not received any sex offender treatment. Secondly, the egregious sexual and violent nature of the offenses. He kidnapped, raped, and committed first-degree murder of an 11-year-old child and left his body in an open field in Livingston Parish. Express opposition from the entire legal community in Livingston Parish, the judge, the DA's office, and especially the Livingston Parish Sheriff Jason Ard, who submitted a very strong letter of opposition to clemency. And lastly, express opposition from multiple members of the victim's family who are vehemently opposed to any clemency. Based on all the above, I reject Mr. Copeland's application.
Thank you, Mr. Rushing. Mr. Mirabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. After reviewing the entire record and listening to everyone, again, no question, facts are in this case. The defendant at the time was 19 years old, he's been in prison, by calculations, almost 44 years. He's got serious medical issues. He's not being asked to be released. He's being asked to get off of death row. believe that he has met the requirements and eligibility to have a hearing. I will-
Thank you, Mr. Marvell. Mr. Quinn.
Okay, you know, it was stated when we first started, you know, all of these crimes are heinous. But some crimes, retribution, in my opinion, just cannot be reached. And due to victim and law enforcement opposition, and he's already not on death row, my vote today would be to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. I would say that I understand Mr. Trinacosta is not asking for a hearing. He's asking, that we forward his application on to the governor favorably. And I believe that my interpretation of our rules is different than yours in that regard, at least. I agree with my colleagues. I do believe that although he may not be able to participate in the hospice program, I've read in great detail the medical care that he's receiving. It's excellent. My vote today is to deny the application. So today his application has been denied.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn at 1:42.
Let me ask you, Mr. Nicholas Trinasta, whatever your name is, what about this monster that you're representing? What is it that makes his rights and his experience as his life ends? What about that makes it more important than the victims, than the family, than the 11-year-old child who is brutally taken from this world? What you're getting up here and fighting for is so that the final remaining weeks or months of this wretched thing's life is a little bit more comfortable. You get up here and you plead your case and you say that 84% of death sentence cases are overturned, that his co-defendant didn't get death, that they asked for some documents, but they never got it. And it's like, so all of that is more important than the family? All of that is more important, that you want it so that all you're asking for is that he can have the end of his life in a different facility? That's more important to you? Really? Why? If there's anything that could bring some type of solace in this case, I'm not saying that there is, because he can't. But he said it himself. He's dying anyways, but not by man's hand, by God's hand. Stage 4 rectal cancer. Yep. Maybe there is some justice. What he did to that 11-year-old boy, if you can't see irony in that, or I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, if you can't see karma in that, that's your choice. Let's go over the court document of this monster. This is George Brooks. So this is his co-defendant. You have to look for Copeland. Here's Copeland. His co-defendant was 37 years old. This is where he talks about the appeal and following the jury's recommendation for this death sentence. The judge sentenced then there were some problems with the jury because they, I realized I had the wrong document. Here's the correct one. And thank you again, Richard, for dropping all these links. There are many for these type of cases. So it's helpful to get the ones that are most important. And there's also something that Richard dropped. There's a podcast that goes over the details of this case, and it's quite terrifying. It's a YouTube podcast. Maybe you've heard of him. I can drop the link in there. Real life, real crime podcast. Maybe I'll put in the link. I'm not going to play it for you here, but if you want to get more details on it, the guy's got quite a radio voice, and he goes over it, although it's traumatizing. But let's go over this now. At approximately 9 a.m. on Saturday, July 1979, a man cutting firewood in Livingston Parish near the East Baton Rouge Parish border discovered the body of a young boy dressed in a pair of cutoff jeans, a single-barrel shotgun, spent shells, and a pair of gloves lay near the body. The man notified the Livingston Parish authorities, who in turn notified the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Department. When the victim's mother contacted East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Parish Department on Sunday, July 8, 1979, to file a missing persons report, the department matched the two reports. It's just the worst nightmare of any mother. Authorities from East Baton Rouge and Livingston Parish began a door-to-door canvass of the child's neighborhood in the hopes of finding someone who had seen the child before his death. When two officers knocked at Copeland's door, Copeland answered, and after looking at the photos of the victim, told the officers that the child was one of the boys who had been at Copeland's house shooting fireworks on the 4th of July. Copeland added that he may have seen the child later in the week on the 5th or 6th of July. As Copeland was the only person in the neighborhood who stated that he had seen the boy, the officers returned and asked Copeland to come with them to the station. Copeland agreed and left a note for Brooks and went with the police. After arriving at the substation at approximately 5:30 p.m. on July 8th, Copeland was orally advised of his Miranda rights. At this point, Copeland was not yet a suspect. 1 hour later, Copeland was advised in writing of his legal and constitutional rights. Copeland then gave an oral statement of his version of the crime. The child had come over to Copeland's house a little after dark on Friday, July 6th, 1979. George Brooks, Copeland's homosexual lover and roommate, told Copeland that he wanted a sexual encounter with the child and took the child into the bedroom. Copeland stated that he did not have sex with the child, that he stayed in the living room during that time period. You're a real hero. That's even your defense. I just stayed in the bedroom and went out to the 7-Eleven convenience store. At 3 or 3:30 Saturday morning, Brooks brought the child from the bedroom. Brooks tied the child and Copeland gagged him. Brooks then wanted Copeland to go with him and the child to make sure the child did not jump out of the car. Copeland stated that Brooks had given the boy a sleeping aid, Nitol. Brooks had brought Copeland's shotgun with him. They drove out to the field. Remember, this is an 11-year-old boy. They drove out to the field where Brooks united and ungagged the child, and that's what they were talking about at the hearing. Imagine the child might have thought, you know what, I'm going to make it. But no. Brooks then took the gun from Copeland, who had carried it into the field. At this point, Copeland told Brooks that he wanted no part of this and ran towards the car. Oh, again, he's being a real hero, which was parked about 100 yards away. When he ran part of the distance to the car, Copeland heard 3 shotgun blasts. Because, 3. He turned around and saw the child fall towards the right. Brooks then brought the gag and rode back to the car. Subsequent to giving the oral statement, you love it how he gives the state thinking it's going to make him look better. Yeah, okay. Not that any of it was true. Obviously, he was a full participant. Subsequent to giving the oral statement above, Copeland gave a tape statement, the gist of which is the same as the oral statement. At the conclusion of the tape statement, Copeland agreed that there were neither threats nor coercion to give the statement, and the statement was voluntarily given. Copeland also noted that he did not want to see Brooks at all. I don't want to talk to him or nothing. Copeland was then arrested for first-degree murder, aggravated sexual assault, crimes against nature, and being a fugitive from Livingston Parish. What does that mean, being a fugitive? He was a fugitive? Later, he was accompanied to the crime scene where a videotape of the area was made. On Tuesday, July 10, 1979, Copeland gave a second tape statement, which is inconsistent with the first. In the latter statement, Copeland related that both he and Brooks were in the bedroom with the child, that Brooks took off the child's pants, Copeland took off the child's shorts, that both he and Brooks assaulted the child. Copeland then revealed that at one point the child became ill, no kidding, and the men let him go to the bathroom. Once in there, the child tried to escape through the window. This is what they spoke about too. But Copeland prevented the escape by kicking in the bathroom door and taking the child back into the bedroom where more acts were performed. It's disgusting that they're both not gone out of this world, that they both are just in prison, that one got out of it, and then the other, and that you have attorneys that think that they're doing something righteous. And in this case, again, I'm going to get so angry. He's not even, this just shows how it can get dragged out of insane proportions. Some of these attorneys make the approach that you have no right to take a life, and whatever it is that they say on it. And we've seen, I've watched a bunch of these hearings already. They all have a different twist to it. One of them just twisted the data to an extent that my favorite DA, Tracy Balboa, ripped her apart. It was beautiful. We'll have to play that one. But in this case, you're not even sparing his life. You're not even doing that. You're just trying to make his life a little bit more comfortable. Shame on you. At the expense of the victim, shame on you. They took him to the field where Copeland shot him at least twice. Now they're saying here that gagged and they took him through. Copeland shot him twice. Copeland further stated, I wasn't sure I was going to kill him until after I pulled the trigger. So he pulled the trigger. I didn't know whether I could do it or not. Oh, you're a brave guy. You did it. Wow. Copeland concluded the statement by agreeing that no threats, promises. Okay. He confessed in his own free will. You really? You want to have empathy for that thing? I don't know. They go through different appeals, the jurors. I don't think we need to go through it anymore. I'm just saying that there are a lot of nutty people out there, and there are a lot of people that feel so righteous and feel so awakened. And it's all at the expense of other people. It's at the expense of other people's pain, of the family members' pain. And if you can't see that, I just don't understand. it just, it's just beyond my comprehension. I don't know how one can have a debate and say that this person, their end of life, we should go and put the family who does not want this to happen, that we should put them through another injustice. Imagine, and I don't know, again, Mr. Marabella is like, imagine if the board had approved what that, it's re-victimizing the victims. How is that justice? How would that be something that you would go to sleep and feel, I did a good deed? Let him rot where he is with his stage 4 rectal cancer. Maybe we can wish him that he'll have a nice, long, long life where he is. Or maybe when he finally goes, it can bring some peace to the victims without having to have another injustice brought to them, to have a panel recommend to the governor that he be sent somewhere else on their expense. Shame on you. With that, I'll let you go.